going on, y'all? It's Greg. Greg said it. Y'all, we in week 3. And man, it's already shaping up to be in true Colorado fashion, y'all. Something that we should have expected all along. I mean, when we knew that when Shador would leave and they kind of tried to make it seem like they had it straight. Like when the whole Juju recruiting, like, oh, he's going to get the keys. And then, boom, right at the bowl game, we hear about Salter. And like, we try to rationale, like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. He's a senior, give Juju time to develop. And then some people would think, a few, well, what about Staub? And then we say, Ponder's there. And it's like, oh, for once, Colorado's one of the deepest room in quarterback after a couple of years of just holding your breath. Staub wasn't ready. No depth was really there, and you knew the season was gone. But this year, you knew you had something. But I don't think we knew. I think we underestimated the type of quarterback battle this really could turn into, especially if Staub was to emerge. It was almost written off as if it was going to be between Juju and Salter, and the whole summer it was like it's gonna be him or him. It was like automatically set. Nobody thought at all about Staub coming into the play with this situation, and now that he's here, it creates all kinds of like dramatics and complications. Like, oh my goodness, what's going to happen? Is Juju going to leave? Because Staub had 3 years left, including this year. Is Salter going to have buyer's remorse or whatever? Like, why did I come here? It's his last year. It's a lot of emotion tied to the situation, y'all. And I think at the end of the day, one thing that could be good for the team, hopefully, may not be the best for the individual, like it typically isn't when it comes to sports. Because only one quarterback can be on the field at a time. Now, more than one can play. And typically, in most teams' situations, sometimes, unfortunately, some of the quarterbacks get hurt and you have to play multiple quarterbacks. And then you're going to be like a Cleveland, what could be a mixture of injury and just poor performance. Cleveland play, in the pros, play 4-5 quarterbacks a year, seem like. So it'll be different for Colorado as much as Shador got banged around and slammed and all of that he pretty much played every game. So when Staub played last, which was over a year ago. So now we're looking at the fact that you're in a situation where you never had to really figure out who's the quarterback. I mean, Coach Prime came in saying, hey, I got my Louis luggage, and this is my starting quarterback, and it was never, and they hated that. It was never like an unknown for him who's going to be his quarterback. It was no QB battle. Even to the point today, people say, did you pull Shador when he had a bad? And which is silly because you're not going to just pull Shador because the team's not performing, because it wasn't necessarily on him. It was the whole team, so you couldn't just pull him. And he never really had a whole 2 games in a row. Even if he had a tough game, he recovered. If not, then how you going to explain his stats? He didn't get out on doggone stats in one game. He had to be consistent to keep the percentage and the yards and the touchdowns that he did every single year he was in college. So you can miss that whole situation. Right? You can, no matter how you dress that up, you can't explain that. He's not playing a bunch of cupcakes every week because they didn't play cupcakes. So every week he had to come to play. If he didn't perform in certain games, that just means he could have had even more. And I even talked about that with him, like, oh, you playing with your food, go ahead and get your stats. I ain't to my stat pad. I'm like, don't let up on these teams you're supposed to blow away. But sometimes it wasn't a competition. You kind of like took his foot off the gas. But that's what we had with Shador. And, it's not a surprise that that's a big hole to fill, especially if you kind of expect the same type of production. I think the way Colorado's built, no matter how you really, really look at it and how you want to believe it or not, they're built to be a high-power offense. You want them to run more, but it's never going to be just a pure running team because they got too many weapons at receiver that they want to get the ball to. They got way more weapons at receiver than any position. These boys didn't come here to block, to not get the ball. They're playmakers. They brought all these playmakers in because they're going to get them the ball. And that's why a lot of people really didn't want to believe they were going to run the ball this year. But at the end of the day, they got how to run the ball, But they got to get the ball to the playmakers. And that's when Staub came in. Staub brought the old regime back. Bombed it down the field. People say it's busted coverage. It was that. Busted coverage happen all the time. You just don't take advantage of them. Staub took advantage of it because that's what he was going to do. Busted or not, he was going to put that ball up. And he did it not once, but twice. And he really threw a lot of good balls that really did what I said the biggest thing that Colorado had to do. Get their weapons involved. Run their little bubble screens and run the ball and not really taking advantage of your weapons is a disadvantage to you because you have more weaponry out there than anywhere else. And you can compete just like they've done for the last year or two. They competed there. They didn't compete in the trenches. Oh, they lined too small, whatever. But the games that they were in, especially first year, they were still there. And the games that they won last year was not because they had a dominant running game like people wanted, but because they was able to make up for it outside. And that would have run the game help? Yes. But Colorado is built to score throwing that ball. And they got to have a quarterback. Unless they change everything up, they got to have a quarterback that can do it. Not potentially, but got to be able to do it. And up to this point, Staub showed really quickly and really clearly that he's able to do it. You can say, that's just Delaware, that's this. But the ball placement and all that don't have to do with the team you playing. That has all to do with you. So the way I see it, he is the closest thing to what they need. And it makes sense because he's from the old regime. He was there with Shador. He was calling the signals and behind him, and he's back up for a couple of years. You would think some of that will rub off, that mentality, because they still want that mentality. They still want that guy that can get that ball out to the sincere Browns. You didn't bring him here to not get the ball. You didn't bring all these boys, Joseph Williams. You didn't bring even Gibson. You still got a Marion Miller. You got so many weapons that really is a matchup nightmare if you can get them the ball. So the person who plays has to get them the ball. There's no option. There's no overthrowing them or not throwing at them, or there's no excuse. You got to give them the ball. So what does that look like? Going into Houston, week 3. Do you try to battle? Do you try to bump chests? Do you try to be what you're not? Clearly, they're not the most dominant, the most aggressive line. No matter how they try to dress it or mix it up. Would you really try to make them be something that they're not? Yeah, they should run more, but do you make them be what they're not? Because you're looking at the film. That's not who they are. But they pretty good pass blockers. And you got some of the best receivers in the conference. I mean, on paper and just period. I mean, look what they accomplished, where they come from. So what I expect is a Staub, like everybody's saying, they want to cover it up. It is what it is. To go out there and air that ball out. Historically, I've said the Staub wasn't the guy to air it out. You definitely got to mix out the run with him. You just can't he ain't no Shador. He'll mess up trying to be Shador too. But Staub is mobile. He's willing to run. But one thing that Staub has shown, he will throw some interceptions. You see him well off. You see it in former games. You see him almost slip up and do it in the last game. That's the one thing you watch for him. You ain't really seeing that with Salter. Salter is not the guy sitting up, dropping back, putting the ball in tough situations and risky situations. You don't really see that. But he's also been playing very passive, very safe, which explains not necessarily the points only, but it kind of correlates with the play calling, these little short routes and hitches. You ain't airing it out. And it's almost like either they don't trust him with that or I don't know. But that's not a good thing. I mean, they would know more than us. They're watching the practices, like Coach Prime say. They know if he can air that thing out like they want to, because they really can have an advantage. I mean, you put a Marion Mill out there and Sincere Browns, you got to double team both of them, you're going to run out of people. And then you sneak somebody like Gibson, the Hards, that's quick and sneaky. You put Joseph Williams, big boy packages. I mean, they can put a combination on your behind if they can get them the ball. If they don't get them the ball like Georgia Tech, they're getting like one ball each, And they still only lost by a touchdown. And they played horrible. And nobody want to talk about that. Everybody want to talk about what Georgia Tech could have, would have, should have did. Colorado made all kinds of foolish mistakes. I mean, they didn't have the turnovers like Georgia Tech, but they might as well, because they wasn't blocking worth for nothing. They wasn't tackling worth for nothing. And you say, oh, Georgia Tech was so good, because you want to tell yourself that because they beat you. But reality is Georgia Tech not that good, because they barely beat a team who played a horrible game. Like, when you see that combination, that's a scary thing. Like, if you beat a team and play hard and play good, and they, lower than you, then you can give some respect. You can say, you know what, it is what it is. But you beat a team at their worst. You didn't beat Colorado in their peak and their prime. They're a new team. You caught them slipping. Because if they had to play the game they're supposed to beat, yeah, they would have ran away with that game before you even thought, oh, what if I ain't make those mistakes? Because it would have cost you. But because Colorado's still trying to figure this out, clearly they're trying to figure out who the quarterback. Because you caught them, you barely beat Colorado at their worst. Coach Prime said, catch me why I am now. Like he said a couple years ago, catch me while we at our worst, because you're going to catch me in the future. Colorado, as bad as they plan, as irritating as it is to watch them, especially football pundits who watching it, what they do show is they do fix those issues if they have the nerve and the audacity and the character to fix the mistakes and the blocking schemes, the personnel, whatever. They're going to be pretty good, because they playing the game raggedy and they won. And it'll be Delaware, but Delaware played a decent game. The quarterback didn't really, but the defense played good. They played a good game and they lost, and they only scored one touchdown. Yeah, the quarterback could have made a difference. They had a better if was a fifth. If Colorado done my thing within fifth the zip. So we can play the if game. But at the end of the day, if Colorado make the corrections, whether you feel they're capable of it or not, won't do it, they believe this about themselves, they don't listen, whatever. Well, regardless of what you feel, if they can make the corrections, hopefully they can. They got all those coaches over there. They can be a pretty solid team, because they beating themselves and still hanging in. And that's been their legacy. That was really their first year. And that's the scary part. They could do that again. They can be in a lot of close games and lose, because they just not, fixing the issues that they have. If they fix the issues that they have, it'd be tough. So we'll see. We'll see how they respond. We're going to see, was it beginner's luck with Staub? Staub jump himself out there and do it again. Boy, the people going to go crazy. Because they're trying to see, was it luck? Was it Delaware? You really didn't get enough looks at it. And Staub can go out there and make completions and get that ball to the big playmakers. You might have yourself something. But that don't mean that Salter and Juju don't need to be ready, because things can change. We seen even with Jalen Hurts back with when he was at Alabama, and it was him and Tua. And Tua took his spot. And then he had to come back. I think Tua got injured, and he had to come back and get them into the playoff. Hurts did. And then another time, he had to come back in the actual championship and help them win. After he had his position. Then he went to another program and did decent. Then he went NFL, and now he got a Super Bowl. You got to always be ready. You can't, no time to have pity parties. Salter got to be ready. Salter can't go, hey, it's too early in the season, man. A lot can change. Back and forth, back and forth. People get hurt. People can take your spot, start off, and then you have to come back in. You better be ready. Because 9 times out of 10, you still got value for the team. And you still are a asset as far as at the quarterback room, that if anything go left, Juju included. Man. No, Ponder, I don't know. I felt like Ponder should have been gone. He should have been gone to somewhere like Norfolk or Delaware. I feel like he should have got to one of them teams and helped Michael Vick or somebody out. Feel like he's just, maybe he didn't want to do that. I know that's where he came from. I think he's been dominant out there with his size, his athleticism, his arm. It's just hard in this room. This room has too much depth. And I thought that Staub should have left after he had that Utah game. But he hung around and look where he's at. So maybe it'll work out. Consistency is key, just like they said in their meeting. Have to be consistent. I'm just Greg. Greg said it. Make sure y'all like, share, subscribe, comment, and I'll talk to y'all soon.